Lewis Hamilton joined Ferrari to chase an 8th title, but the data from Miami tells a story Maranello hoped would stay hidden. The SF26 loses 3 to 4 tenths on every straight, a pattern that has repeated since Suzuka. Hamilton knows this car better than anyone, and his silence on the simulator speaks louder than any radio message. What happens when the driver, who has won 105 races, stops trusting the tool designed to make him faster? The chassis shines in slow corners, yet the hybrid system surrenders on the straights. The number Ferrari did not publish was the one that mattered most. If the simulator feeds engineers a phantom car, every upgrade they validate could be chasing a ghost. This is the part that changes everything. If the development tool is broken, can Ferrari fix 3 critical weaknesses before Montreal's speed traps turn theory into verdict? The answer begins with the telemetry Hamilton refused to ignore.
Lewis Hamilton's radio calls in Miami were not frustration. They were a forensic report. The SF26's power trace shows an identical derating pattern to Suzuka, proving this is not a one-off glitch but a persistent flaw.
At the 200-meter mark of every straight, the MGUK stops pushing and starts pulling energy back. That shift costs Hamilton 3 to 4 tenths per straight, lap after lap. What happens when the driver who has won 105 races sees a pattern the team's own data should have flagged months ago? Under the 2026 rules, the power unit splits output roughly 50-50 between combustion and electric drive. The MGUK alone can deliver 350 kilowatts when the battery is charged. But when it cuts early, the combustion engine must power the car and recharge the battery at the same time. 2 jobs, less speed. Ferrari's target is a gain of 6 kilowatt in energy duration before Canada. That number sounds precise, but will it move the clipping point enough to matter on Montreal's long straights? If the deployment software is the fastest fix, why has the same power drop appeared across 2 months and 3 race weekends? The answer points to a deeper question about how Ferrari validates changes before they reach the car. When a fix is tested in a simulator that may not match reality, the team risks chasing a solution that works in the virtual world but fails on track. And that question leads directly to the tool engineers trust most when the track is closed. Hamilton's best result in 2026 came in China after he skipped the simulator entirely.
His worst qualifying sessions followed heavy prep work in the very tool Ferrari trusts to develop the SF26. The pattern is clear, and Hamilton has acted on it.
When the virtual car does not match the real one, every setup choice becomes a gamble. What no broadcast covered is this. Ferrari reran 3 CFD models after Miami, and all pointed to a sensor calibration drift in the Sim's tire wake modeling. Charles Leclerc's driving style happens to align closer to what the current simulator output shows. That creates a split in the garage data that complicates engineering consensus. Under the 2026 regulations, wind tunnel hours are capped. Every hour spent debugging simulator correlation is an hour not spent validating new aero concepts. This is the part that changes everything. The vicious loop is brutal. Wrong sim leads to wrong upgrade validation, which leads to wrong development direction, which widens the performance gap. If the fix requires weeks of wind tunnel correlation, but Canada arrives in 10 days, what gets prioritized when time is the scarcest resource? The answer reveals whether Ferrari is treating this as a technical glitch or a foundational trust issue. And that question leads directly to the aero challenge Hamilton flagged with his own eyes. A front wing design that looks different from every team beating them. Lewis Hamilton pointed out something you can see with your eyes after qualifying 6th in Miami. Ferrari's front wing end plate has a leading edge that sits forward of the main wing element. No other front-running team uses that geometry in 2026. The dive plane on the outer edge exists to split air cleanly around the front tire before rough wake reaches the floor. Clean air under the car means more downforce for the same drag cost. But here's what the paddock is not talking about. Ferrari did bring a new dive plane as part of their 11-part Miami upgrade. Hamilton's complaint is not about inaction. It is about a step that was too small. McLaren's Miami success came from tuning end plate angle, brake duct interaction, and suspension clearance across 4 races, not 1 weekend. Copying a rival's shape without matching their brake duct geometry or floor rake could worsen balance, not improve it. Fredvasseur called the Miami update a step in the right direction. Hamilton called it too small. That tension reveals the pace of development Ferrari faces. Paddock aero analysts estimate that each millimeter of end plate adjustment can yield 1/100th of a second in downforce gain. But that gain only matters if the airflow ecosystem underneath responds as expected. Ferrari's history includes era-defining aero innovation from minds like Rory Byrne and Nicolas Tombazis. The current challenge is not about copying a shape. It is about understanding how that shape interacts with brake cooling, suspension wake, and underbody pressure distribution. The real story was never about the lap time. It was about whether Ferrari can rebuild its aero integration process fast enough to matter. And that question leads directly to the sprint format pressure cooker waiting in Montreal, where one practice session will decide if any fix works at all. Lewis Hamilton faces a unique challenge in Canada, the first sprint weekend at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Formula One history. The format compresses 5 sessions into 72 hours, leaving only one practice run to validate any fix Ferrari brings. If the deployment software update is not working from the opening lap, there is no second chance to recalibrate. What happens when the margin for error shrinks to a single session on a track that punishes hesitation? The casino straight runs over 1.1 kilometers of full throttle, where a 200-meter early power cut becomes catastrophic for position defense. Heavy braking into the chicane demands sharp front-end grip, amplifying any end plate gap when tires are cold in sprint qualifying. Mercedes leads the team standings by 70 points after 4 races. If Canada goes wrong, that gap could break 100 points with 18 races still to run, and that is where this story gets complicated. What the paddock is not saying is this: Ferrari's backup deployment map was tested at the Monza filming day, but FIA software approval timing creates a narrow validation window. If the fix is not ready for FP1 Saturday, the sprint format will lay bare every weakness before Grand Prix qualifying even begins. The real test is not whether Ferrari can fix 3 problems. It is whether they can prove the fix works under the most compressed timeline of the season. That proof begins with the strategic counter Mercedes has been preparing in silence. Mercedes held their biggest upgrade package of 2026 back from Miami on purpose, waiting for a track that rewards straight-line speed to deploy their strength. Kimiantonelli, the rookie sensation with 100 points from 3 wins, and George Russell with 80 points form a front line that already leads the team standings by 70 points. Toto Wolff called it playing the long game. What happens when a team with championship momentum arrives in Montreal with a 3/10 upgrade that targets the exact weakness Ferrari cannot hide? The package includes front-wing end plate refinement, new carbon covers on the front suspension, a reworked underbody floor, and a lighter gearbox that frees up ballast for tire temperature management. That weight saving translates to better rear stability under braking, a critical advantage into the heavy chicanes of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Mercedes gained 3/10 in wind tunnel correlation, a number backed by driver feedback and CFD validation. This is the part that changes everything. If Ferrari's software fix closes only 1/10, the gap could widen on every speed trap. But here's what the paddock is not talking about. Mercedes' patience turns circuit characteristics into a force multiplier. The low drag layout of Montreal rewards the straight line speed they already own, making their aero gains worth more than the raw number suggests. If the deployment fix does not land and the aero gap remains, Ferrari faces a championship math problem that 18 races may not solve.
And that question leads directly to the culture crossroads inside Maranello, where the real story of Ferrari's 2026 season is being written. Lewis Hamilton has won 105 races by naming problems, not accepting them.
His public feedback on Ferrari's simulator, front wing, and deployment software is not drama. It is an engineering stance wrapped in a driver's choice. Fredvasseur has not pushed back publicly on any of Hamilton's comments. That silence raises a question the paddock is watching closely. Is this new transparency calculated management or internal consensus? What no broadcast covered is this. A former Ferrari engineer from the Rory Byrne era once said driver feedback used to travel through 3 layers before reaching design. Now it travels in real time. Carlos Sainz spent his final season at Ferrari in a culture that often filtered driver input before it reached engineering. Hamilton operates on completely different terms. His career was built on the kind of sharp technical feedback that rebuilt Mercedes' development programs during the turbo hybrid era. When Hamilton tells a team the front wing looks wrong, it forces action. When he skips the simulator, it is not a protest. It is data. The real story was never about the lap time. It was about whether Ferrari can build a development culture that leverages Hamilton's expertise without sacrificing long-term engineering rigor. 18 races remain in the 2026 season. But in Formula One, momentum shifts are hard to reverse once a performance gap becomes structural. If Ferrari's response to Hamilton is real adaptation, Canada will show it in the speed traps. If it is reassurance theater, the gap to Mercedes could become insurmountable. And that question leads directly to the consequence close, where Montreal's data will turn speculation into verdict and reveal what kind of team Ferrari is becoming while they race to catch up. Lewis Hamilton will find out in Montreal whether Ferrari's response is real engineering or just reassurance. The simulator trust issue will not be fixed in 10 days, but the deployment software might show measurable gains in the speed traps. Watch the casino straight telemetry live. If Hamilton's SF26 loses power at the same 200-meter mark as Miami, the software fix did not land. If the clipping point moves even slightly, Ferrari's adaptation is genuine. This is the part that changes everything. A front-wing redesign will not appear before Barcelona, the earliest realistic timeline for a design-level change. Canada serves as a data-gathering phase for the current layout, with setup tweaks as the interim solution. If Mercedes gains 0.3 and Ferrari gains less than 0.1, the championship gap could hit 100 points. 18 races remain, but in Formula One, momentum shifts become structural once they take hold. And that is where this story gets complicated. The deeper story is not about Canada alone. It is about whether Ferrari can build a development culture that leverages Hamilton's expertise without sacrificing long-term engineering rigor. The straights in Montreal will not lie. For the first time this season, Lewis Hamilton's car will have to answer with more than words. What the data shows in that moment will define Ferrari's 2026 season more than any single upgrade package. The verdict arrives on the casino straight, and the entire paddock will be watching.